Hi guys, and welcome to a new video on Sonal's Life. We are here for a review of the historic All Elite Pro Wrestling All In show at Wembley Stadium. I was going to say Wembley Arena. This review, I'm always for being positive, but this one might not be what you all expected, especially if you saw me live tweeting, so you can follow me at wrestling_chat, about the Rev Pro 11th anniversary show that was held at the Copper Box just the night before. And a vlog will come out at some point on that with a review of that. So like I said, I came back and I managed to catch the pre-show. Now that is almost where my grievances started. So the first match was for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship matches. And it was between the champions, my boys Aussie Open, Kyle Fletcher and Doug Zilla, versus future opponents later in the card, MJF and Adam Cole, BFFs. Now, one, Aussie Open should not have been in the opening because they are loved in the UK. Second, they were being billed as heels, which again, for people who love Aussie Open and who even watched them the night before at the Red Pro show, know that is far from the truth. And third, I was like, oh, this is just going to be something to help build on the story for the main event, and that's exactly what it was. While I always love Aussie Open's wrestling, and you know what? MJF and Adam Cole are phenomenal wrestlers. I felt like this match was less for wrestling, but more for storyline. I got even more upset that Aussie Open lost the Ring of Honor titles. They are a pure tag team. They have been wrestling together for years. They were former IWGP tag champions. They have literally wrestled all over the world, and they lost in the UK. Yeah, that wasn't great. But I guess that's maybe hoping that we're going to get them doing AEW titles, because unfortunately IWGP isn't in their future anytime soon. We also had Hook versus Jack Perry, so former Jungle Boy, for that title. Again, the match was fine. It was pre-show, babyface versus heel. I actually know the storyline. Obviously they were friends, and then Jack Perry turned on him, because I actually watched that show. That was actually at the Forbidden Door show, hilariously enough. Yeah, another great match. Like, it was all right. I say great. Like, it did what it needed to do in the pre-show. It had two upcomers. It was obviously slightly shrouded by the controversy that apparently Jack Perry and CM Punk had an altercation before the show. That's something for you to keep you updated and sort of to keep tracks on, because I feel like it isn't a week going by that CM Punk hasn't had beef with someone. Yeah, two fine matches. I got to see Aussie Open. As sad as it was that it wasn't long and they didn't get a bigger shot, it's an AEW show. Aussie Open is still fairly new in the roster, so I get it. Now, I can't really remember the order of all the matches, so I'm just going to go through them one by one. When I get to probably one of my favourite matches, you're going to be like, oh no, you're biased. I watch New Japan, and you'll probably guess which one was my favourite. So just don't hold me to it, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, because you know I am nothing but honest, and when I am always positive in New Japan, it's because that's what they deserve, and I'll be the same here. If I like the match, I'll tell you. If I don't, you're going to get my honest reaction. So I'm literally going by like the card that I've seen. Like, I've actually got a screenshot if you want to see of all the matches, just so I can remember. So in order here, we had, I think the first match was CM Punk versus Samoa Joe for the, I guess, the not real AEW championship. Wasn't really my kind of match. I love Samoa Joe. I watched him in WWE when he was in NXT, and I saw him come up to the main roster and how he was misused. And I think his style is great. For me as a New Japan fan, I see him as like a combination of Ishii and Jeff Cobb. So athletic, but very big. Like, he uses his muscle to advantage. Very fast and agile in the ring. CM Punk was great as well. It was a great way to start the match when people like to start the entire main show. Two veterans in wrestling who have so much history with each other, and yeah, it was a really nice match. CM Punk got the win. It was very dangerous from like the get-go, and I'll say this about a lot of the matches. There was a lot of blood. Personally, as a New Japan fan, I love unnecessarily dangerous things. But again, like I said, this is just coming from my perspective. Some of you might have loved it, some of you might not have. This is just what I think. So yeah, a great way to start. I don't think the wrestling itself stood out in any way, but it was a great storyline. They got the crowds excited. I mean, the sound didn't come off great, but I assume that like the crowds were feeling it because it's CM Punk and Samoa Joe. From there, I literally cannot remember what happened next. Yes, it was my favourite match of the card. I mean, favourite match of the card personally, but like second or third. It was the 6-man tag match. I think this was name. And for a New Japan DDT, so I guess a pro wrestling fan like me, it was the perfect match because on one team we had, and he's still there, my boy Jay White teaming with his new bestie and former rival and then former bestie, Juice Robinson, teaming with DDT's Konosuke Takeshita. I'm in 2023, and if you'd have told me that those three would be teaming together in London for AEW, I'd have told you were crazy. And they were facing an even more bizarre 2023 trio of the Elites, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, and Kota Ibushi. Now, for all you New Japan fans, you will know that this match has so many connections, even if you're a DDT fan. So, Takeshita was actually trained by Kenny and probably the help of Ibushi while he was in DDT. Jay White has had beef with everyone on that team. He had a feud with Kenny many times, including Kenny was the one he beat for the United States Championship in January 2018. Then February 2018, he had a feud with Hangman Page for the United States Championship, which, yeah, one of my favourite feuds, one of the first feuds that I watched in wrestling. Yeah, it was February, because I was thinking later of the Juice Robinson one. And Kota Ibushi, who Jay has had more than his fair share of fights with. While I guess people say it still wasn't maybe like a big match, and it was a multi-man match like you see in New Japan. For someone like me, it was amazing to see all of the wrestlers work together, showcasing the... For me, I think, apart from maybe the main event and I guess Jericho versus Ospreay, this was the one that I thought was wrestling-wise the best. There were so many different styles, so Takeshi's got his strength. Jay's a defensive wrestler. Juice Robinson's Juice Robinson, then obviously Kenny and Kota being so high-flying but athletic, and Hangman Pagey. Out of all the Elite who, when they left New Japan, Page was the one that I was the most sad about because I thought he had the most potential in New Japan. And the match was great. I even thought there was like an ode to Tanahashi when Jay started doing air guitar on Kenny's leg, but that might be overthinking it. In the end, Konosuke Takeshita got the win with a roll-up. Now, I know people weren't that happy with it, but it makes sense. Takeshita is the heel, still shocking to me, teaming with the heel, Jay White. And is he realistically going to get a proper clean pinfall over any of the other guys in the other team, who are much more experienced, especially in the case of Kenny and Ibushi? And it means I think they've got really big things coming up for Takeshita. I'm going to lump these two together. So we had two death matches. There was one with the Blackpool Combat Club, and then a mix of chaos. So Trent Beretta, Chucky T, Orange Cassidy, and Eddie Kingston was there as well. And then we also had one with Sting, and yeah, it was they were two death matches, and I'm saying I'm going to put them together. They were not my cup of tea. You know, I'm all for stipulation matches. We've seen blood in New Japan. Despy is a bloody nutter. Moxley, whenever he comes, there's blood normally. But it's not that common. Tables, chairs, ladders, not that common. So I think that these matches were dangerous and bloody for the sake of it. They were big spots, but for me, not really any wrestling. I mean, Beretta's mom, Sue, was there. At first, I was like, wait, who's Sue? And I was like, oh, it's Sue, the Sue. Personally, I guess it added, I assume the crowds went crazy for it. But personally, I just didn't think it was needed. You could have literally had just a normal match, especially between the Blackpool Combat Club and then the guys from obviously Best Friends and stuff, because they're all very good wrestlers, especially, I'm not saying especially, but we know how good the Blackpool Combat Club are. They're not just about these gimmicks, they are strong fighters. So yeah, that I wasn't a fan of. Again, it just felt like a lot of mismatched bouts going on, and they just seemingly wanted to put everything on the kitchen sink into this huge card, which I get. But as shown by the Rev Pro show that I went to, sometimes the traditional professional wrestling matches are the ones that connect with the audiences, especially here in the UK. We then had we had some title matches. So we had the women's fatal 4-way. So that was between Hikaru Shida, Toni Storm, Dr. Britt Baker, and Saraya Knight. Now, What I loved is, and I know some people were a bit bitter because Saraya came out with her entire family to Queen, and obviously everyone was like, but that's Emi Sakura's thing. I know, everyone would have loved to have seen Emi Sakura at Wembley coming out, Queen with the mustache. But I really actually enjoyed this match. It was a really nice bit of storytelling. As expected, Saraya and Toni Storm are in the same faction, but that was never going to work. So very quickly when they were trying to pin, I think it was Shida, maybe it was Bray, I don't know. They started to get some confrontation, and then it all came to a head when Toni Storm was beating up, I think it was her, I should probably have written this down, beating up one of the competitors, accidentally hit Saraya's mom. So then she obviously got pissed off. Then Ruby Riott, that's probably not her name, but sorry, former Ruby Riott came out, and then Toni Storm obviously instantly became the heel. And it was actually a really good wrestling match. While the story I still think was like the main forecast and like the forte. Sorry if I'm using weird words because it's currently like 10 o'clock and I've been traveling and not sleeping, but you know, forgive me. Hikaru Shida is an amazing wrestler. Britt Baker, like, I feel like because of this whole storyline between Toni Storm and Saraya, she didn't really get the sort of hype that she deserved. Like, she's a phenomenal wrestler. She had this amazing presence. And same with Hikaru Shida, two women who have so much experience in the ring. And I'm a bit not like, while it made sense, so in the end Saraya got the win. She had the big Wembley moment with her family. I'm a bit sad because I think what they said was Hikaru Shida only won it 25 days ago. So yeah, it was the only women's match on the card as well. That was a bit of an issue. And they didn't let Hikaru Shida have a reign. If this was just a pop and just to have a nice moment, then that's a bit shitty. But if they're actually going to give Saraya something to do with this title, that's amazing, because a few years ago, no one knew if she could wrestle again. We then had the Young Bucks facing FTR for the AEW titles, and I love tag team wrestling. And this was actually a really good match. Like, the Bucks and FTR know each other very well. All four of them separately are amazing wrestlers, and then in teams they're amazing wrestlers as well. So I think that their chemistry was electric. I think this was where the crowd really popped off. I think this was the third or fourth match. Literally phenomenal. It was, I really liked the storytelling and the in-ring action. There were a few meh moments. I feel like I'm going to say that like a lot of the matches had a few meh moments, like a few botches and things you could see that didn't go well. But this match had the heart, it had the crowds on their feet. The new ring gear of the Young Bucks was also a very nice touch, and the armbands on FTR for the ones that we have lost recently, which seems to be so many names, which is actually like heartbreaking. But I liked that everything worked really nicely together. We then had a 6-man match for the, I think, AEW Trios titles or something, Trios. It had the House of Black, and then, what are they called? The Acclaims, that Billy Gunn was in it, and he was doing Famouses. Yeah, again, a fine match. There was some interference, but in the end, we got a happy ending. It was all great. And then we got up to the 2 special singles matches. So, bearing in mind, can we just say... Oh, it's on my hair. Can we just explain that Will Ospreay had a war against Shingo Takagi the night before? Like he said in his promo for Rev Pro, I don't know if you can find it online if you've not subscribed to it, but it was so... He put his soul on the line, basically saying he's been travelling, he's been obviously taking care of his son, he's done... So he came back from Japan, then went to America to film, then came back here, then had a wedding, then had Rev Pro. He's got an injury, but he still managed to put on an amazing match with Chris Jericho. Now, I was a bit worried, because whenever they have Ospreay coming out with Don Callis, it's almost like they're trying to put him as a heel. Thank God they didn't do that, because Ospreay is the man. He is British wrestling, along with guys like Zack Sabre Jr. and many more. So he came out to basically a hero's welcome, and it was really actually heartwarming and quite emotional, especially because I have been watching Ospreay for years and was probably the wrestler after I started watching WWE that made me watch independent wrestling. Like, British independent wrestling also get me into Japanese wrestling because of New Japan. And yeah, the match was amazing. There was a few moments I was like, oh, well, like when I think Jericho like back suplexed him on the end, like the edge of the ring. But honestly, Jericho really held his own as well. He was a real heel. There was a lot of cheating and stuff. Obviously, in the end, Ospreay got the win. We heard Elevated being sung by 80,000 people. Ospreay got his crowning moment. Now, People have said he didn't come out with the UK title. They refer to him as a free agent. Please do not jinx things. I want Will Ospreay to be in the UK for a very long time. I want him to be in New Japan for a very long time. I can't have him going to AEW like they took Aussie Open and Jay White. Okay, so please don't say this. And then we had the main event. So up until this point, I wasn't... while it was a great show, it wasn't giving me the pay-per-view stuff. It wasn't giving me Forbidden Door. It wasn't like, obviously I'm a New Japan fan. It wasn't giving me Wrestle Kingdom and stuff. But the main event was great. There was a bit of an issue, which I'll talk about through it, but it was MJF versus Adam Cole for the AEW title. They're besties, so they put the t-shirts on. But very quickly we realised that Adam Cole was the one who you're going to have to watch. He very quickly took off MJF's shirt, and it was every man for himself. And at one point, Roderick Strong came down. Now, what I love about this match is they put on very big movesets. They said, you know what? Even if the show hasn't been that pay-per-viewy, this is gonna steal the show. And it did. MJF was flying through the ring he never does that, and he was shocked by it. Adam Cole was being fast, furious. I didn't watch New Japan when Adam Cole was there, but I have seen stuff later on, and I watched him in Ring of Honor and I watched him in NXT, and he's a phenomenal athlete. And I liked that MJF was the babyface here, because it's a very different, everyone MJF's going to turn on him, isn't he? But it was Adam Cole. Even when Adam Cole said to Roderick Strong to get out the ring, he was still slightly heelish. And at one point, I think there was a double pin from a clothesline. That was where my issues, that's the only issues I had with this match. And then MJF was like, oh, let's, Adam Cole's like, let's do it for 5 more minutes. And MJF's like, let's do it until, somebody wins. The ending, again, so they started wrestling again. And then MJF got the win with a roll-up, I guess was a bit of a shitty way, I think, to end it. But it was a nice story, because after the match, and MJF was like, you only wanted me for this title shot. Are we even friends? Just attack me now. Take the title. And then, oddly enough, Adam Cole, he got rid of Roderick Strong, and, they had the Ring of Honor tag titles, which, bear in mind, Adam Cole was a big mainstay in previous Ring of Honor, a few years ago. And they hugged it out, and it was a really nice way to end the show. Come on, give us some positivity in an 80,000 crowd historical event, which Nigel McGuinness said was the biggest in the world, in history. It was a really nice way to end the show. And like I said, I didn't have all negative things for it. Maybe because obviously I went to the Rev Pro show and I connected maybe more with the wrestlers and the stories, and it was more about the wrestling rather than the storylines. And I get that that is the difference between companies like New Japan and Rev Pro and AEW. So that is personally for me. I don't think the people in the crowds were loving it. I didn't think it was a waste of money at all. It was a great show to watch. Just maybe it wasn't my style of wrestling, especially the death matches and the blood and the tables. Again, it's just a personal preference. I loved that the amount of wrestlers that got a chance to shine. Of course, there is the raising thing of AEW in their women's division. I mean, it's the case in a lot of wrestling promotions. Even in Rev Pro yesterday, there was one triple threat match on the main card and then a Rumble style match in the first, the opener. So the pre-show. It's always going to be a thing that we're going to be constantly battling against. But hopefully, the fact that it was such a highbrow match with the 4 women who are so well respected, hopefully there'll be a change at some point. So yeah, my AEW All In review, I'm not being negative on it. This is just personal thoughts. And I would watch it again, and I feel like there were some amazing matches. Especially for a New Japan fan, the 6-man tag match was phenomenal. I got to see Jay White in his white gear. Really good wrestling. So I'm not going to be fully down on it. I just feel for the hype that it got, maybe the matches didn't deliver to someone like me who is a wrestling, who likes the wrestling rather than the storylines. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought of this historic event in Wembley, because they're coming back next year. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts were, standout matches, what needed to be improved, and generally your thoughts on it. So you can let me know in the comments on social media. So follow me at wrestling_chat. And while you're there, hit like, share with your friends, and make sure to hit subscribe. It's been a crazy weekend for like wrestling in the UK and in London, and I love that here in the UK we are having these big promotions come on, because I think we deserve it. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the shows and videos, and I will see you soon. Bye!